All right, let's talk about the future. Specifically, the future of the global supply chain. We're going to dive into what it's going to take to not just survive, but actually thrive through 2026 and even further.
I want you to think back just a couple of years. I mean, who could forget, right? The empty shelves, the ships just sitting out in the ocean, waiting forever for, well, pretty much everything. It really felt like the entire system that moves stuff around the world just broke.
But here's a thought for you. The headlines have moved on, sure. But what if that crisis, the one that caused all that chaos, what if it never really went away?
That's right, it just evolved. The pandemic-specific problems might have eased up, but trust me, the era of disruption is far from over. It's just transformed into a whole new kind of beast.
So, what does this new constant crisis even look like? Well, the challenges have totally shifted. It's not one single big event anymore. It's a whole new mess of overlapping problems.
We are dealing with this relentless wave of new issues. You've got rising inflation messing with all the costs. You've got extreme weather events literally shutting down ports. Then there are labor strikes, material shortages, and geopolitical tensions that can just stop trade in its tracks. It's not one thing anymore. It's navigating all of this at once.
So in response, the smart companies aren't just sitting around waiting for the next disaster. No way. They are fundamentally rebuilding their supply chains from the ground up. And the new keyword for everything is resilience.
And you can really see this evolution in how they think about inventory. We went from the super efficient but really fragile just-in-time model, right? Then everyone panicked and swung to the other extreme, just in case, which is basically hoarding inventory and costs a fortune. Now we're finally landing on just right, a smart, hybrid approach that uses data to stay lean, but also keeps enough safety stock on hand for emergencies.
One of the absolute biggest changes is diversification. I mean, look at this number. A staggering 90% of U.S. companies are done relying on a single source for their materials. The days of depending on one factory in one country are over. It's just way too risky.
So what does this diversification actually look like in practice? Well, think of it like a mix and match strategy. Companies are using nearshoring to source from closer countries like Mexico, they're onshoring by bringing some production back home, and they're still using farshoring in places like Asia. The whole goal is to create this flexible network so that a problem in one part of the world doesn't bring your entire business to its knees.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, how on earth do you manage a complex web like that? Well, you can't. Not with spreadsheets and phone calls anyway. And that brings us to the next massive trend, the complete digital transformation of the supply chain.
Here's a perfect example of what this automation looks like. An IoT sensor on a shelf detects that stock is low. Bam! The system automatically triggers a reorder. Then a bot, what we call robotic process automation, processes the invoice. No human has to touch any paperwork, which frees up your actual people to solve real problems.
And the backbone holding all this new tech together? The cloud. A massive 82% of companies are expected to be running their supply chains on cloud-based software very soon. This is what connects all the pieces of the puzzle and allows for real-time data sharing across the globe.
And one of the coolest tools this makes possible is the digital twin. Seriously, this is cool. Imagine creating an exact virtual replica of your entire supply chain. Then you can just break it. You can throw virtual hurricanes, cyber attacks, whatever you want at it to see where the weak spots are, all without any real-world cost or risk. It's like a flight simulator for your business.
So, if all these digital tools are the new foundation, then artificial intelligence is the engine that's going to power the supply chain of the future. It really is the ultimate force multiplier. And if you think AI is some far-off future trend, just look at this. According to a recent Economist Impact survey, 98% of executives are already using AI in their supply chain. This isn't something that's coming. It's here, right now, and it's nearly universal.
So what are they doing with it? Pretty much everything. AI is being used across the board to improve customer service, to create incredibly accurate demand forecasts, to optimize inventory, and to detect risks before they become full-blown crises.
And the results? They are huge. Early adopters are already seeing things like a 34% reduction in costs and a 32% jump in planning accuracy. These are not small changes. They are massive, massive competitive advantages. So where does this all lead? Well, all this restructuring and technology isn't just about avoiding disruptions. It's about building a supply chain that's smarter, more sustainable, and way more focused on the end customer.
A core problem these new tools finally solve is visibility.
For years, companies have been flying blind. A recent KPMG report found that over 40% of firms have almost no clue what's going on with their direct suppliers, let alone their suppliers' suppliers. That's just a huge risk.
And a big part of this new vision is sustainability. We're seeing the rise of the circular supply chain. This is all about moving away from the old take, make, and waste model. Instead, it focuses on designing products that last, taking them back for reuse, and recycling materials to create a closed loop that's way better for the environment.
But there's a big gap here. While 85% of companies feel high regulatory pressure to be more sustainable, their actual progress on these circular models is, well, it's slow. And that gap is exactly where we're going to see major investment and innovation in the next few years.
What it even means to be customer-focused has totally changed. It's not just about fast shipping anymore. Today's customers are demanding total transparency. They want to know exactly where their products came from, who made them, and what their carbon footprint is. And finally, what about the people in all this? This isn't a story about robots replacing jobs. In fact, new tools like generative AI are empowering workers. By giving employees instant access to really complex information, companies are seeing their efficiency shoot up by as much as 15%. It's about augmenting human intelligence, not replacing it. So we are in the middle of this massive rebuild of the world's supply chains, driven by new tech and a laser focus on resilience. But this leaves us with one provocative question. Will all this AI and automation finally create a supply chain that's truly unbreakable? Or are we just getting really good at preparing for the last crisis, while the next unforeseen disruption is waiting just around the corner?